Welcome to Wheel of Horror, the podcast where two best friends spin a wheel every day in the month of October. It chooses the horror movie and they discuss it. Today we're talking about 1978's Dawn of the Dead, which was directed by George A. Romero. I'm your co-host Alec.
I'm Eric, and with us again is Joe Testa. Joe, welcome back to the show. So excited for this one.
Thanks a lot, guys. Yeah, me too. I mean, the very first Wheel of Horror episode I was on was Night of the Living Dead, and that was a year ago. So this episode has been a year in the making.
First of all, I want to apologize because I listened to that episode and I said something where I was like, man, I must be the only idiot in the world who paid money to get Night of the Living Dead on Blu-ray. You're like, actually, I own like 7 different versions.
I have Laserdisc, I have Blu-ray, I have tape, I have 8,
Every new format that comes, I usually buy it, and usually multiple times.
Well, I'd like to, a year later, formally apologize for that statement.
No worries.
But yeah, dude, welcome back. There could be no one else we could have on this episode besides you. We need your expertise. We know you're such a huge fan of the original, so.
Yeah, huge fan, and excited to jump into this one.
I want to start by saying this, though. You blew my mind on the Crow podcast, so if anyone's listening and is a huge fan of the Crow, Joe, you knew so much about that, and tonight talking about this movie, very excited to hear your thoughts. Just want to touch upon the crazy news going on with Alec Baldwin.
Yeah.
Like, right as we posted that episode, all that unfolded. Just weird, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of eerie, but very tragic again. And I agree with what everyone's saying. Like, why is this happening in Hollywood still? So just wanted to touch upon that real quick. I think it's very weird coincidence that we did the Crow podcast the day that happened. Well, we posted it the day it happened. We had no idea. Crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
It was downright creepy and really sad that, the day we posted that episode and talked so much about that on-set accident, something so similar happens that same day. It's just, I mean, creepy, but also really, really sad.
It should never, ever, ever, ever happen again on a set.
The other weird thing was the next day was the Twilight Zone movie. That was our next episode. So I was like, what the hell is going on? Like all these horrible onset accidents right as this happened. So I was like, this is freaking weird.
That is weird too. Yeah, the Twilight Zone is not far off from a bad production. Yeah,
but sad stuff.
Yeah, but to turn the note around too, before we get into it, we just talked before briefly about getting Halloween is right around the corner. Alec, do you have any plans for Halloween?
I'm gonna have probably a little get together here, have some people over. Nothing crazy. I'm not going out to bars or anything, so don't have a costume yet.
No costume. That was my next question. Okay.
No, just a lot of candy. I've been eating so much candy this month.
I bought my candy I got excited because first time I'm having trick or treaters this year, but I bought way too much candy, and I've been kind of dabbling. Joe, how about you? Any Halloween plans?
Me and my wife were just talking about this. We don't really have any plans, and we try and make it up to Sleepy Hollow, New York.
Oh, New York, okay.
Once a year. And we haven't gone this year, so we were like, you know what? We have no Halloween plans. Why don't we just go up on Halloween? So that's the plan right now.
Hell yeah. Metro North, do it up.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. What about you, Eric?
No, solid plans. I was thinking of having a couple coworkers over. Joe, you're welcome to come over to Stratford too. It's right by the where you saw Alice Cooper. If you want to swing by Saturday night, by all means. Me and the wife are gonna be Cobra Kai though. We got Cobra Kai costumes. So looking to strike hard, strike first, no mercy. Whatever.
I appreciate the invite too.
Yeah, definitely, dude. If you're around and you're going to New York, whatever, please stop by.
And I'll go fuck myself, Eric. Thanks for the invite.
You're 2,000 miles away, dude. You're not catching a flight. You're not coming. You're not invited, Alec.
Wow. Okay.
But just wanted to dabble there because Halloween's so close. But let's get into this film now. Joe, I took my edibles. No, I'm kidding. I'm so hyped to hear what you have to say.
It's always very high expectations. It gets me very nervous when we start these shows like this. But It's funny, I didn't know there was a sequel to Night of the Living Dead when I first saw it. I think I was maybe 12 or so, and maybe discovered this a couple of years later in some books I read. And I think once I read the word zombies in a mall,
Hmm.
made it my mission. Me and my friends made it our mission to track this one down, and saw it probably in our early teen years. This was probably in the mid 90s. And I'll also say that the zombie subgenre was pretty much dead at that point. The only other thing I could remember at that time was Return of the Living Dead 3, which was a direct to video movie.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, we rented it, we watched it. I still remember the day vividly, and blew our minds.
Yeah, man. This one really cranks it up to 11. I loved it, but there's one thing. So this was actually really hard for me to find to watch,
Mm.
So back then I can imagine it was probably VHSs, but like literally I couldn't find it anywhere. I had to watch it
It's
on
on,
YouTube.
dude. It's on YouTube. I was just gonna say, like, there's like 4 different versions free on YouTube.
Right.
Yeah, I meant to ask you guys about that because there is some. To tell you the truth, I don't know what it is. There was a Blu-ray release of this movie many years ago, and it's since gone out of print. And there was just a like brand new, beautiful 4K restoration that was released overseas in Europe. And
Did you
yes,
did you buy 4 copies? You
I
bought four
indeed,
copies.
I know, I just bought one copy, but, yeah, there's nothing stateside, not legally anyway, so I actually was curious how you guys track this down. I don't know what the issue is actually, but this movie has become scarce for some
It's
reason.
funny you say that because me and Alec were texting last night. We both watched it last night, right, Alec? You watched it
Yeah.
too?
Hmm.
Yeah, so I was watching it really late last night, and Alec was like, "Hey, which version are you watching?" I'm like, "I'm watching the YouTube version." I was like, "How long is it?" It's like 2 hours and 7 minutes or something. I forget what I texted you, but you're like, "Oh, I'm watching like the 2 hour and 30 whatever
Mm.
minute one."
Yeah.
So there's different lengths of this movie out there for
Yes.
sure.
That brings that brings me back to our, Blade Runner discussion, Alec. There
Mm.
are, like, 3 different versions of this movie, which I could cover a little bit if you want.
I guess the thing is, like, every time I finish a movie, like Doctor Sleep was another example where I didn't know
Mhm,
there's a longer director's cut, and I'm like, well, fuck, it's only like 20 minutes longer. Might as well do it. So for this
mhm,
one, I specifically was like, I'm watching the longest one they have,
mhm.
and I want to know like what are the
Well,
differences?
real
I
quick, Joe, before
Mhm,
you get into it,
mhm,
the one I found, it said theatrical. That's the one I always prefer. I feel like I don't like director's cuts sometimes. Like that's
mhm.
just me. But I know people love director's cuts. I was never a huge fan of that. But anyway, do your thing.
Yeah, yeah, it depends, and George Romero actually prefers the theatrical cut. It's just like the Blade Runner situation where the director's cut isn't quite the director's cut, it's just named that for probably marketing reasons.
Hmm.
But yeah, the theatrical cut is George Romero's preferred version, and the extended cut or the director's cut just has some longer, scenes, a few extended scenes. It's nothing too major. I do think it might slow things down a little bit. I think the theatrical cut has a better pacing. And then there's the European cut, which was overseen by Dario Argento, the director of Suspiria.
Mm.
He took it and recut it to be really like a fast-paced action adventure movie that he thought would play better in Europe, and that's the shortest version. And that one, another way you can tell you're watching that version is it's entirely made up of music by Goblin, and the other soundtracks have Goblin and also lots of library tracks, lots of strange little choices from George Romero.
Well, I guess okay, so the version that I watched had some pretty weird music that I didn't like at
Mhm.
first and really grew on me, but it sounds almost like it's like do 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 do. It's like a happy, almost like synthy sort of
It's
thing.
swirly. Swirly is the word I'd use. Like
Okay,
just
so that was in
yeah.
your guys' version too?
Yes,
Yeah,
I had it in mine. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
yeah, those are the library tracks that George Romero found and decided to throw in there. This movie does have a completely different tone from that very bleak original.
Yeah, dude, the
And
music.
the music definitely helps.
Dude, it sounded like Thomas the Train kind of. I was like, "What the hell is this?" But regardless, actually by the end of it, I was like, "Alright, actually I wanna download this song now." So, what do you prefer though, Joe, of the 3 cuts?
I go with the theatrical cut.
Yeah.
I think the extended cut is just maybe a bit too long. It gets, it maybe drags here and there a bit too much. And then the European cut has the opposite problem where
Mm,
there aren't enough of those great character moments. So yeah, the theatrical cut I think is the best of both worlds.
What
right.
does it build on? Does it build on like character? Does it build on like action? Like what does the director's cut do?
There's a couple of extra scenes of dialogue and just some extended scenes. I've only watched the director's cut once, so I hope I'm not missing anything major, but I didn't feel like I was gaining a whole lot when I watched it.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. It feels like especially that scene where they go to get the 18 wheelers and they come back in the helicopter, that scene seemed like 20 minutes. So I was like, this is probably where they added some of it because it was
Mhm.
very long. Also, saw a couple cars in the background during that scene. So I don't know if that was in your guys' cut. Maybe they cut that
Mm.
out, but there were moving cars in the background. I was like, oh no. Oh no.
Little blooper or
Yeah, but yeah, whatever. I mean, I in my mind was sitting there like, well, maybe that's a different group of survivors that we don't know about.
100%. That's what you would say.
Yeah, that's what I said. Even
Yeah.
though I'm like, oh, it's probably just some fucking guy. But yeah, man, this movie, Tom Savini, this is before Friday the 13th. So like this must have been one of his first projects, probably.
Yeah, I think he worked on one of Romero's earlier movies and kind of forgotten movies called Martin,
Hmm.
which is this vampire movie. And it's another one that is hard to track down. There was like a DVD that's out of print. But if you could find it, Martin is actually a pretty fun little movie. But yeah, that's the only other one that I know of that he might have worked on first.
Dude, I mean, just the first thing is like that guy's head getting shot off with a shotgun. I was like, whoa, okay, Tom Savini is here, like full force for this movie.
It's impressive. It really is.
Oh yeah. The whole opening in general, like even the newsroom scene, especially in these past couple of years we've been living in, it just feels so real in its chaos. And
20
then
2020 is as close to this as it has gotten
yeah,
in our lifetime at least, but yeah.
and then you go from that to that siege on the projects, and oh man, I remember me and my friends just looking at each other like, what the hell
Damn.
is this? Like, we better we better buckle our seatbelts.
Oh my god. I mean, yeah, not only just the murderous like shooting and all that stuff, but like the dialogue. I was like, "Whoa, this guy is so racist." Like, holy
Well,
shit.
that's aggressive, but also the fact that they're trying to keep all the like the zombies. Do they even say zombies in this film,
Just
Joe?
once.
Just
Just
once.
once.
Okay.
Yeah. Ken Foree says it later, and I think it might be the only time in any Romero movie where they
They say
actually
the Z
use
word.
that
The
word.
Z word.
Yeah. It's the only time I could think of.
It's that's so cool. But what they were doing on that, like the roof or the area where like they caged them, and they're like, "Hey, these are bodies. These are people." And it's just the opening scene is crazy. It's
Mhm.
crazy. But yeah,
And how long does this take place after A Night of the Living Dead ends?
Well, that apparently is something that a lot of people have different opinions on. And it's funny you mention that. I always felt like it just takes place in real time, like it's been 10 or so years and it just kind of has slowly gotten worse. But maybe that is way too generous.
could it be
Maybe it's
simultaneous?
yeah, like, it's funny, I've heard theories like that where maybe it's happening at the same time because you do see the rednecks later, and it looks a lot like how the
Similar.
last movie
Yeah.
ended,
Is
yeah.
this Pennsylvania too? This is Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the
So,
Pittsburgh
I
area.
mean, come on, like that adds up. The
Yeah.
only thing, it's like, could this have been a little better if it was black and white? Do you think the
Mhm.
color was cooler? What do you think? Would you have preferred black and white? Or
I don't think so, even though I love the black and white imagery of that first one. This one has such like a comic book kinda feel and
yeah,
look to it.
Yeah.
I think the color, is appropriate, and even the color of the blood is kind of controversial in this movie. You know, and it looks really weird. Apparently Romero liked it. He just thought it helped with the kind of crazy comic book vibe he was going for.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I say that because that's the only way I feel like it's a time difference. You know, black and white feels older, and color
Mhm.
feels newer. So it's like it's up to interpretation, I guess.
Yeah. What do you think, Alec? When does this go down?
I actually think this takes place pretty close to Night of the Living Dead, just because if zombies had taken over, I wonder how long like news, stations would be staying open. It seems like all of these people, like the mall seems totally normally intact still until they get there. So I think this is either
Has to be close.
pretty immediate or within like a month or so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, but I also prefer that it's in color. Definitely, it's just different. It's a different movie.
Going back to some of Savini's effects, I mean, there's a lot of great gags in here. Like later on, the machete to the head is one I really love. But I feel like a lot of these are just sort of a dress rehearsal for what he does in the next movie, Day of the Dead, which I
Mm.
think is like Savini's masterpiece. I
I've
mean,
never I've
there's
never seen that. So
oh, okay,
yeah,
okay. I mean,
um,
as far as like special effects go and makeup and gore effects, I mean, that one's really tough to beat. But there's a lot of good ones in this movie too.
Yeah, there's a couple deaths I wanna point out. Obviously, in the beginning, kind of the helicopter with the dude's head getting cut off. I was like, "How
yeah.
the hell was that actor like, 'Yeah, yeah, I
Oh,
trust you. I trust you.
oh,
How old are you? 26? Yeah, I trust you. I trust you.'" That one was great. I think the fat guy just falling into the pond, I like that one too. But yeah, so you were talking about earlier, Joe, with the machete to the head with when Savini did that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. He jams it into the zombie skull, and I saw a documentary on how they did that, and it's just really cool and really simple. It's just essentially done in reverse. Like they just started with the machete against the guy's head. You know, half the machete is missing, and then he just pulled it away. And when they play it in reverse, it looks like he's jamming it into his head.
Oh, yeah, dude. Oh my God, it just feels like there's like montages of just cool deaths, like cool zombie deaths, just back to back to back to back to back. Did you have one, Eric, that stood out to you?
just when they bite people's arms and legs, it always like, oh my god, like it just triggered me in a weird way. Where I'm like, oh god, they just go right in there and just take it out.
The chomps, dude. It looked like
Yeah, yeah. Well, like Roger or Peter getting in the truck. I think it was Roger who gets messed up, gets in the truck, and he goes back for his bag. And oh my god, like I just, it's not even a death. It's just like getting bit is
Mhm.
so
mm,
violent.
I love all the characters in this movie too. I mean, I think in a lot of ways they're even an even better ensemble than that first one. You know, they're not all types. You know, it could have just been like this guy's the badass and this guy's the coward, but they all feel very real and lived in. But my favorite is definitely Ken Foree as
Peter.
Peter. I mean, he like Ben in the original is the kind of guy that
Dwayne
you hope.
Jones.
Yeah,
Is there
like
a reason why they didn't cast him again? They just want someone
he
different?
died. He dies.
He
yeah,
does die, right? But this could have been a new movie in general. But like Dwayne Jones is so badass, but
yeah,
so is Ken Foree. But I love both of them
yeah.
like so much,
Both
and
of those characters, I feel like they're who you
awesome.
wish you would be in that situation, or if not, just someone you hope is next to you. You know.
Yeah. Roger would be next to you in this situation. Speaking of that, though, I watching this, I'm like, man, this movie is a bromance, straight up. Peter and Roger, when they like just like realize, like, hey, like, you're like me, I'm like you. We're like, it's like, people, let me tell you about my best friend. We're going to the mall. We're gonna kill dead guys. That's like all I was thinking watching it. They were like the buddies of all time.
Yeah, no, but you're right though, Joe. It's like they. I feel like if somebody was writing this now, they'd be like, "Oh, well, this has to be like the scientist person.
Mhm.
This person has to be the goofy guy. This person needs to be the badass." But you're right;
Right.
they're all kind of like interchangeable badasses, essentially.
Mhm.
And it is kind of cool how you get they have previous relationships together. They're in a obviously they're not married, but they're gonna have a kid together. Where in the Night of the Living Dead, it's a bunch of strangers meeting for the most part. So I do
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, I love all the relationships, and going to one of my favorite scenes, and I think one of the creepiest scenes in the whole series is when Roger gets bit and he's dying and he's sort of out of it, and he tells Peter, I'm gonna try not
Love
to
it.
come back. That just like gives me
And
chills.
we see it off screen. We hear it off screen. You know,
Yeah.
it's like we know he just died, and Peter knows that he's gonna change, and he doesn't even give that time to happen. You know, he just
Mhm,
does it, and I think it's very powerful, and
mhm,
that's what true friendship is. You know,
mhm.
totally.
Right. But did I miss something? But it seemed like at the end, Steven, Flyboy, he
Flyboy.
he
Flyboy.
he kind of, like, fucks, Peter over a little bit, though. Like, when the shootout's
Yeah,
happening, he's like, "Where are
yeah, he
you?
did. He
Flyboy,
did.
Flyboy." And it's like, "Dude, what are you doing? That's your boy. That's, like that's all you have now is him and your wife." So, like, I was really surprised by that.
Was it when
Well, he made the people aware. He fired when he shouldn't have
right, so
fired. Yeah.
it's because he just gets too trigger happy, right?
Exactly. It's not his fault, but it's like, ah, dude, like, oh, you just screwed everyone. Like
Mhm,
now they know where we are. You know.
yeah.
But also you hear Peter being like, "Flyboy" on the radio constantly, and he's, like, running away basically. Like, he's
He is
not
ignoring. He is ignoring. Also, so good point, Alec. Yeah.
yeah, but I was like,
Mm.
"Damn it. Like, why are you doing this? This is when he needs you."
So was that Roger like death scene your favorite part, Joe? Would you say?
It's a part that just kind of haunts me. So yeah, maybe if I'm gonna pick like a quieter moment and not one of the great, Tom Savini moments, yeah, that's the scene that sticks with me.
You know what that reminded me of? You ever see Tombstone?
Yeah.
You know that scene when Val Kilmer's like dying at the end,
Mhm.
like
Yep.
as Doc Holliday, I think, and he's just like, "If you love me, you'll leave me right now." Meaning,
Mm.
I'm gonna die in like 10 seconds, and I don't want you to witness me dying.
Mhm.
And White Earp just gets up and leaves him. Like, doesn't say a word, just leaves. It's like, if you love me, you'll
Mhm.
do this. And that's kind of what Roger and Peter had. They had like a
Yep.
relationship where it's just like, don't let me change, and he didn't. He
Mhm.
straight up made it happen and did what he wanted him to do. So it
Yeah.
reminded me of that scene a lot.
And all this stuff I feel like has been done to death at this point. I mean,
Oh,
there's
for
been
sure, for sure.
so many movies and 20 seasons of The Walking Dead. But like when I saw this, I mean, all of this stuff was so fresh. I mean, even the idea that they were running around a mall. I mean, at the age I was when I saw this, like the mall is where we spent every weekend just walking
You know
around.
what it is? It's fun.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's the point of it. It's just like that. I mean, your favorite part is Roger and Peter. Like, what was your favorite part?
When Roger's dying in Peter's arms.
Yeah. So mine is when they're just having fun in the mall
Yeah.
and just like playing golf and like
Hmm.
popping bottles and drinking and trying on watches. And I think that's such a cool concept. And I like that in the remake too. Alec, did you have a favorite part?
Let me think about it. But one thing I did want to actually ask you guys too about more about the actors is none of these guys, except for Ken Foray, really went on to do anything, and most of them this is what their first role too. So
Yeah.
I want to know, Joe, do you have any idea like what the hell happened to these guys' careers? Because they were all great in this movie. And
Yeah.
it's 2 hours of just those four.
Yeah, not really. From what I understand, they were all like struggling New York actors that George Romero just like plucked from obscurity. And I think they all do great. Obviously, Ken Foree is a legend, but the only other credit I know is Galen Ross. I forgot her character's name, but that's her name in real life. She had a small role in a movie we covered, Creepshow. She is Ted Danson's girlfriend.
Oh,
Oh,
the one that comes back from the water?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
huh.
Yeah,
Okay.
so fun piece of trivia there, but no, tell you the truth, I don't know these actors from much else.
Yeah, I looked him up. I do recognize Ken Foray from the Halloween remake. That was the first thing. I was like, oh yeah, he gets his ass beat in the bathroom.
Yep.
Um, but I guess, I was thinking my favorite part. I don't know if I have like a favorite part, but I do really like the scene where Ken Foray is like, no, they're raiders. Like, there's a lot of them or whatever, and they don't believe him. And then you see that shot of all of the motorcycles, just the headlights coming over the hill. Really
Mhm.
liked that because I
It's
was like,
scary. It's
it
scary.
is.
It's nightmarish. It's
That's
like that's your fear.
it's
Something like that.
real fear because obviously, we've all seen The Walking Dead, we've all seen all these zombie movies since then, but it's like the zombies are only half of it. It's like the
Yeah.
people are the real villains in this movie, you know?
Yeah.
It's
Um,
true.
And even though this movie, is tonally very different from the last one, you could tell George Romero still has very cynical feelings about his fellow man.
Perfect.
I mean, even more so in this movie, I feel like George's feelings on zombies have changed. I think he's starting to sympathize with them, or at least find them a little more pathetic. And, there's that whole pie fight scene,
Oh
where,
yeah.
I mean, he's not even trying to make the zombies scary towards the end of this movie. The real threat is the motorcycle gang.
Right, and that's actually a really I didn't really like the pie scene, but it is a nice
Mhm.
contrast to show, like, these were the villains, now they're like clowns. Here are the
Right.
real villains, which you already know. They're people.
Yeah, I'm not big on the pie fight scene either. I think maybe it just goes a little bit too far,
Yeah.
but you can tell Romero's feelings on the zombies are changing, and that carries over into the next movie.
Well, what you just said, Joe, is a question I wanted to ask both of you guys too. I feel like this is such like they're talking about consumerism. I feel like, and just
Mhm.
I mean, they even mention it where it's like this is all they know. Like they come back here and they shop or whatever. They do what they're familiar
Mhm.
with. But this is all to me. It felt just like consumerism, just making fun of people's. We're sheep. We're all just following the herd. We're not doing anything interesting. And I think I don't know. At least that's what I took from it.
We're
More
brain dead zombies just buying stuff. Well,
right.
but yeah. I got a sense of that as well.
Oh, definitely. And it would have been timely, when this movie was made, because malls were a new thing. Like when they're flying over the mall, one of them doesn't even know what it is, Like they need the other person to say, "Oh, it's one of those new indoor mall, the shopping
Right.
center things." So like, yeah, the idea of a mall was brand new, and I'm sure people just kind of walking around from store to store is kind of like, I was thinking, how we look at people on their cell phones walking around the street, just kind of in a daze, in their own little world. It's kind of, that's probably how shoppers in a mall were seen back in the late 70s.
Well, yeah, it's like where would you go if you were a zombie? It's like, I know where Alec would go. He'd go to Flatbread Pizza. I know that for a fact.
I do love pizza.
Where would you?
Um,
Joe would go like a barcade. He's like, I'm gonna go to a barcade or something.
Movie theater. I,
Yeah,
I,
movie theater.
I,
Yes,
movie theater.
absolutely.
Yeah.
There you go. So he knows this. He remembers it. Yeah.
I feel like when we were kids, though, we always talked about where we would go to survive the zombie apocalypse,
That is
and
okay. Okay. Okay.
this movie
Bro,
is that conversation.
me and Alec had this conversation when we were 16. And it's funny you say that because Alec, do you remember where we were when I said this is the perfect place if there was a zombie apocalypse?
in the movie theater.
The movie theater. There's a back closet, and it had candy. It had popcorn. It's like we can live off candy and popcorn. We have all the ices we want, and it was like a locked room. No one can get in there, air duct wise, everything. I checked it out. Like it
See,
was locked tight.
he's leaving out the most important part. The movie theater was connected to a Stop and Shop. So we could
Yeah, dude, we were thinking about it like constantly.
yes.
Like, oh, dude, we can get food. Like,
Yeah, so
obviously
there's
not meat,
there's
but
a
yeah.
candy room, but there's also it's also connected to a
But yeah,
well-stocked
come on,
grocery
come on.
store.
Free ices for the rest of our lives. Come on. Watermelon Sour Patch Kids, you can't go wrong.
Oh,
But
I totally relate to these conversations, especially before there were, so many movies and seasons of Walking Dead that explored this stuff. I mean, me and my friends would talk about this endlessly.
Yeah, it's
unf
it's like the go-to question. You're like, "Well, what'd you guys do in a zombie apocalypse?" And
today's zombie apocalypse movie would be in like an Amazon warehouse or something.
Mm.
And they like use like the robots to like kill the zombies. It's like, okay, get this package. Tell them to get this package, and like just crushing zombies constantly.
It's true though, malls are kind of on their way out now.
I
Could
know.
they do as an Amazon warehouse type of Night of the Living Dead or Dawn of the Dead?
I'm sure, but that's not nearly as fun.
No,
No,
no.
it's not fun. That's
Well,
not fun. The zombies all pissing in water bottles. I'm like,
oh my
when's my
god.
shift end?
I have two questions for you guys. So the first zombie movie I can think of where zombies stop moving and acting like this and start running and acting crazy is 28 Days Later. And then
Mm.
from there, it was like Dawn of the Dead. The remake had them running. Oh no, Walking Dead, they're slow. They're slow in that. Okay. But it started where it's like, oh, zombies are fast now.
Mhm.
What do you prefer? And is that the first one that you can remember? Is 28 Days Later where they're quick?
The first one that I can remember is Return of the Living Dead,
Oh,
and
from 1990, that one?
1985.
Oh, okay.
The very first Return of the Living Dead, there were quite a few fast moving zombies. And yeah, people forget that one. It seems like 28 Days Later usually gets the credit for that. As far as what I prefer, honestly, I want to be old school and agree with George Romero, but tell you the truth, I kind of like that there's variety. I know that in Dawn of the Dead, the remake, there are fast moving zombies, and I think it's gives that movie a different flavor, which is good. So I'm going to take the easy way out and go right down the middle and say I like both.
Eric, do
Mhm.
you have a preference?
I mean, honestly, what Joe just said made it sound like a human like zombie is probably the best way to say it. Not slow, not like rage, but like an actual like a human like moving faster and like trying to get to you. As
Right.
if I was to attack you. You know what I mean?
Okay, well, I wouldn't
Like
want that either.
slow but out of breath. You know what I mean? Like
Just hung over, like,
yeah,
oh.
exactly. Exactly.
Because I was like, the only, I mean, obviously, if it's just one human on one of these Dawn of the Dead zombies, not that big of a deal. But the big thing is when there's like 200 of them, there's nothing you can do. You're kind of fucked. But the other ones, it's like one fast zombie can kill so many people. The second question I had though was, have you seen the Dawn of the Dead remake? And I'm assuming you have. And what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan. I feel like of all those remakes that happened in like the early and mid 2000s, honestly, that's probably one of my favorites.
Yeah. What Eric? You saw that? Yeah,
Oh,
you've seen it a bunch.
I was
Yeah.
just gonna chime in.
Mhm.
I love that remake. I think
Mhm.
it's phenomenal. It's fun,
Mhm.
definitely fun. Early 2000s, like crazy. The Down with the Sickness, it came from that. I feel like, but that's another scene that I love. They do in that movie is when they're having fun in the mall and like playing
Mhm.
with clothes. He's bench pressing. They're playing basketball. They're like, it's just like that idea, like just you having a mall to yourself in itself is a
Yeah.
cool idea. But then this movie does like we also have a helicopter and we also have this. So it's like it's so cool that idea.
I think the remake does what most really good remakes do is it just takes the idea and kind of runs with it. It isn't, a straight remake,
No.
it's not trying to tell the same story. It's just the same idea.
Yeah, and they like do like a thing like instead of a gun store in the mall, there's a gun store down the street,
Mhm.
and he's our buddy, and like we're showing each other signs, and
So many more characters too.
yeah, for sure. But
Just different.
and yeah, different, but like still the same.
Well, the only thing that's really the same is that they're in a mall. That's like really it, kind of. I mean, that's I
Mm.
don't know. There's so many more characters. The ending is totally different. Yeah.
One thing I'll say about the remake, I think sometimes it gets shade thrown at it because it doesn't have that subtext that the first movie has about consumerism, things like that. But I'll say this, the opening 10 minutes of that movie are one of the best horror openings ever. I know we just talked about Scream a couple of weeks ago. That Dawn of the Dead remake opening is right up there with it.
Mm.
And I feel like sometimes, even if the filmmakers don't mean for it, and this actually goes kind of relates to our first Night of the Living Dead discussion, sometimes movies just kind of absorb the times that they were made in. And if someone asked me, like, what was it like to wake up on September 11th? I would say, go watch the opening of that Dawn of the Dead remake. That captures what it was like, just the kind of
Chaos.
insanity of that day. So that's what I always think about with the Dawn of the Dead remake.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Yeah. Shit.
that's heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And it's not really a heavy movie. It's actually
That's heavy duty,
it's
doc.
it's a really fun movie. Both of these movies are really fun.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, do you have any last minute thoughts, either of you, on this Dawn of the Dead?
I'll say this. Another favorite part, real quick, is the Peter giving up at the end and then saying "F that, I'm not giving up" and surviving. I think that's so cool.
Yeah. The ending's
I
so
love
awesome.
that ending where he's just like, "Let's go, I'm gonna die," and then
Mhm.
he has this like, "Now I've gone too far" moment. He's like, I'm not dying," and he gets
Mhm.
out, and I love that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my last minute thought.
What about you, Joe?
Everything I've heard about the making of this movie, it just sounds like a huge party. It sounds like they had such a good time. And I'm sure it was a lot of hard work too, because they had to shoot all night because the mall opened during the day and they had to clean up and clear out and then shoot all night again. And, so I'm sure it was difficult, but I think watching this movie, you could tell they just had such a good time. And I don't know, there's something just in the best possible way, kind of amateurish about George Romero's early movies. And it just makes it, at least when I was young, it just makes me want to do that. Like it made me and my friends want to like grab a camera and do something like this. So I think that's something great about early Romero movies. I just find them so inspiring.
Yeah, it's like George Romero almost inspires like Sam Raimi, which then kind of inspires like Eli Roth, and it just
Oh,
kind of
for
like
sure.
continues down this trend, and I love that.
I think Night of the Living Dead is probably inspired more amateur filmmakers than any other movie ever made.
I agree with that because it's also
Mhm.
public domain too, so it's so easy to get your hands on it anyway, any way you
That
want.
too.
Um,
Although I was just gonna say it's probably a lot easier to make too 10 years after Night of the Living Dead, where you hire all these extras and they're taking it seriously.
oh, speaking
You
of
know what I
that, do
mean?
you know how
Like
much I found out how much the extras got paid, Eric? Guess,
how
Joe,
much?
you probably know this.
Five bucks in lunch or
$1 a day, but they were all like Pittsburgh locals that loved Night of the Living Dead, so we're
oh yeah,
still
oh that's what I'm saying. That's like nothing's better than having extras that are like caring, you
yeah.
know? Like
Mhm,
shut the hell up when I'm talking. Like just listen to me. Or everyone do this, and everyone listens precisely, you know?
mhm.
And that's what made it probably a lot of fun to do because it wasn't a headache.
Yeah.
What was the documentary called, Joe? It's like We Walk or We Love to Walk or something like that.
There's a couple of them out there. There's one that's called Document of the Dead, and I'm not sure. I watched two actually. I'm not sure what the other one was called, but it's in a DVD box set that's now long out of print. But I'm sure you could find it on eBay.
Yeah, I saw a little bit. Oh, The Dead Will Walk, the making of Dawn of the Dead. Yeah, I saw.
That might be it.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of it. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. Yeah. Well, Joe, again, you blew our freaking minds. So good to have you on to kind of like continue this trilogy. Definitely want to do Day of the Dead too and get you on for that one.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely, I'm here for it.
Perfect. Well, we're almost done with October. We're gonna have a new wheel coming out soon. Joe will send that to you if there's anyone you want to jump on for. But Eric, I think it's time we spin that wheel.
Let's spin that wheel. I'm bummed you're not going to be on the last two spins, Joe. So
Oh,
here we go. Spinning. Okay. This is Dracula,
Perfect. This is Bram Stoker's 1984. I'm sorry, 1992 Dracula.
92. Yeah, with Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
Which is weird because like he aged perfectly in a vampire. I don't know.
Yeah, he looks the same. Um,
Yeah.
all right, cool. Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening into our discussion on Dawn of the Dead, and we will see you tomorrow with Bram Stoker's Dracula?
Francis Ford Coppola is what I would say.
Okay.
But,
Perfect. We'll see you tomorrow with that.
yeah. Woo!